Hey everyone, welcome to Nailed It, a podcast powered by Parker Huggett.
A big warm welcome to Shannon Adams, who's joined us today on episode 2 of season 2 of Nailed It. Welcome, Shannon.
Thanks, Matt. I'm happy to be here.
We're so pumped to have you here. Just a quick introduction about Shannon. She's been within the real estate development construction industry for the last 18 years within the mixed use vertical community space, mid-rise, high-rise, started on site as a site clerk and has worked her way through the ranks to her current destination of Canderel, where she's the director of project management services. Outside of my high-level introduction, Shannon, if you could please give us an introduction about who you are, your career path, and your unique story.
Yeah, I actually love telling my origin story because it's shocking to most people, very specifically in terms of where I am now. So at Canderel, what I do is I run all of the mixed use high rise residential condo construction. So specifically our new construction work here in Toronto. So
Mm.
I manage our project management team in house, who ensures that the construction management team is doing their jobs, who are effectively ensuring that the project is being constructed according to schedule and budget and all of the pieces of the puzzle that are required to future occupancy. I ended up in this industry as a total fluke. I went to school, I went to Queens for fine arts, abstract oil painting, and sculpture. I decided I didn't want to be a starving artist or an art teacher, which I felt were really the two avenues that came out of that at this time. And I followed a boy many boys ago to the land of Newmarket. I was living in a weird industrial box that was owned by his brother's friend. I was teaching fitness. I was a certified fitness instructor. So I was teaching fitness at a gym down the street. I was painting houses, rolling paint on walls in houses as side contract jobs. I was doing commissioned artwork for people that would ask. So I did some commissioned pieces while I was up there. And I was painting kids' murals. So I did Dora the Explorer and Winnie the Pooh and Hobson Calvin and anything that was asked. I figured I probably needed a real job one day. And so I started looking for positions kind of anywhere and everywhere in the city. I wanted to make my way down to the city. So I applied for a sales position at a wood flooring company. And they had already hired someone. They did not communicate that, but I guess the manager was friends with a project manager who was looking for a site clerk at Urban Corp at the Hogs Hollow townhouses at Yonge and York Mills. So I randomly got this call one day from this guy, Mark, who was looking for a site clerk on site. And I drove down to the city for a 2-hour interview and walk around site, and he hired me on the spot. And so I stomped around and I made sure everybody had the right drawings, and I made sure that people were getting paid, and I made sure that everyone was playing nice in the sandbox, and realized that I liked it and I was good at it. And I just kind of moved my way through the ranks from there. Yeah, all street smarts, I would say, not education or book smarts in particular.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a far path to go down. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible. I think for the listeners, it's not every day that you look at an industry and not have to get a full blown education, but you can organically grow in it because there is this real knack for mentoring and bringing along the right people and training the right mentality and the right character versus whether or not someone came out of school.
Most definitely. Even when
Yeah.
I look to hire now, there are obvious company mandates that everyone looks for as a preferred resume selection, but I like to meet with anyone and everyone because it's really personality based. Are you proactive? Are you resourceful? Are you quick on your feet? Are you a good listener? Do I feel like you're going to integrate well with the community, both in the office and outside of the office? There's
Mhm.
a lot of skills that are involved that are not book skills in this industry in particular.
Yeah, that's smart. I think that's really the answer to some of the skill gaps, right? Is hiring based on mindset in person versus, making sure they have the skill sets walking in the door. You could always teach someone if they have the right attitude.
Most definitely.
In the nature of this podcast called Nailed It, a bit of a dad joke on my end, but could you share with the listeners a situation where you've nailed it, AKA had a success with a hire, personal situation that's led to a professional positive outcome or other work related successes?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this in terms of some sort of catalyst event, perhaps, that's
Mhm.
happened throughout my career in particular. And what I would say, stepping into the VP role at 5'9" in 2016 at the age of 30 was a major surefooting for me in my confidence and my understanding of my own abilities and what I was capable of and what my capacity was. I knew I was good at my job. I had 10 years under my belt. I'd been with 5'9" for 9 of those years. I had worked as a project coordinator, project manager, development manager. I'd seen the development and the construction process from the very beginning to the very end. I understood the correlation between the two and the necessity of that proactive management in the pre-construction and development phases. But again, from the beginning of abstract oil painting to where I was, I never imagined my life and my career in this direction. And I was absolutely terrified to take on that role. I received the phone call and I didn't have an answer. I didn't know that I could say yes when I was asked to take it. I didn't feel like I had it in me. And I remember I was so emotionally distraught. It was my birthday. I was getting on a plane to fly to Iceland. I was going away on vacation and I was being dumped with this
Yes.
incredible opportunity.
Mm.
And I thought, I don't have enough experience or authority to insert myself into what I expected carries that title, which is ridiculous because a 30-year-old man would never feel the same way. On the flip side, I thought, who am I? I have no construction education. I am clearly young and adorable. How are they ever going to take me seriously? And you, you can, I imagine you know me well enough that you can see all of that happening. So that in particular, I really stepped into that role. And I realized I was most definitely suited for it. It was not about any of the anxieties or maybe ideologies of what it means to be a VP that I had to step into. I only had to step into my own confidence and know that I can walk into a room and only attention relatively immediately because I know what I'm doing and people can see I know what I'm doing as soon as I open my mouth.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
I still joke now that I'm this cute blonde that's showing up on the job site, right? But my self-deprecating humor is only a friend. I
Mhm,
am very aware and very confident in my abilities,
mhm,
and that moment in particular really drove that for me to
mhm.
now.
It's amazing. And the fact that you worked from project coordinator to PM to pre-development, pre-con, like getting involved in design, like you've really done the whole tour of all aspects of the business. So I'm sure that really lended itself to taking that next step and speaking to your team who are in those various functions.
Yeah, most definitely. I've done all the things, both from a title perspective as you work your way through the ranks,
Mhm.
but also from a very beginning to very end of development and construction phase perspective. And I've worked on, man, 70 projects now.
Wow,
It's wild. My project list is wild. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
that's incredible. That's
Yeah.
amazing. I think for anyone
Yeah.
listening, anything's possible in this industry. And it's pretty exciting. So, what challenges in your experience planted the seed for this success? Was there a situation that made you feel more confident, or was it getting just kind of physicality is reality, like stepping into the role and having that realization, or did you have a previous experience, share, or challenge that allowed you to get the courage to take this role on?
Yeah, I was very kindly raised in this industry, I would say, by Philip Marsland at 5'9". And so he allowed me a lot of rope and stretch and leeway to be myself and
Hmm.
to take on as much as I was interested in taking on and to run with it, but to very specifically guide me if I was kind of moving off track. I was mouthy when I was younger. I was immature. I made decisions and responded to emails out of emotion and not out of fact. And I got my hand slapped a few times, and that was the right thing to do because otherwise I wouldn't have learned to operate in that suitable professional manner, which is how I have to carry myself on a day to day now. And again, because I was mentored and guided in the right way, I was able to grow and be prepared for everything that was coming. I think the real challenge for a lot of people now is if they do not have appropriate leadership and mentorship and guidance in what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong and how they can be better, then they are not going to have the ability to stretch and to grow and to have the opportunity to be in these roles as they move their way through their career, or maybe shouldn't be in these roles as they move their way through the career because they haven't had that appropriate, what's the word? Love, maybe? Support?
Yeah. Tough love, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And in your opinion, what does the general contracting and development industry in Canada do really well?
I didn't have an immediate answer for this one, which I think is quite hilarious. It says a lot about the industry as a whole.
It's very honest of you.
No, no, that's the only way to be. So, when I thought about it, I thought, "Okay, we're good at doing things the same way we've been doing them for the last 100 years, right? We are really good at concrete formwork, and we are really good at conventional mechanical systems. And in Toronto in particular, because we have to be, we are really good at working in incredibly tight infill sites between residential neighboring towers or residential neighboring homes and still facilitating and managing construction of multiple stories of new build.
Mhm.
So I think we have most definitely figured out how to do it. Innovation and technological advancement are slow to come around. They are coming. And in particular, the generation that's coming up is going to drive a lot of that change in our industry.
Mhm.
So it's coming. And I think eventually we will do that well, but we are in no way, shape, or form close to how they're constructing in other places in the world.
Mhm.
So that's kind of, I'd say, what's next for us as the old school moves out and the new school comes in.
That's exciting. And
Yeah.
and when you see the rest of the world, do you find that international players or findings have been brought to the Toronto market for a level of innovation, or do you just feel like that's coming as an industry locally?
I'd say yes and no. I think there are changes to municipal, provincial, federal mandates that are enforcing change. So if we think about Toronto has this new mandate for net zero carbon emissions, right, by
Right.
2030, which in itself is a bit of a ridiculous concept, and we can speak to that later. But because of that, there are all these companies that are kind of coming out of the woodwork that were struggling for attention before, but are now getting the attention they deserve, in particular, because we are going to have to move in that direction. So I don't necessarily think it's coming from overseas or other parts. I think it's more because the industry has not been driven to make drastic change for so long, there just
Mhm.
hasn't been opportunity for it to come around.
So, what's this new initiative from a carbon zero standpoint?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
There's a retrofit mandate and there's a new construction mandate. And so I am not reading the most current municipal bylaws. They change all the time. But ultimately, Toronto is implementing, and cities across Canada are implementing net zero guidelines. So we have green standards mandates of which we
Mhm.
have to adhere to as we construct. We generally, as an industry, are only achieving what is required because the change is being implemented and we need that kind of innovation and technology at the same time. We are just constantly trying to push and catch up on what the new mandate is. And we all want to be better and we want to build differently and we want to build greener. Now we're being forced to do so, but we need the tools and the consultants and the technology to be able to achieve it. So
So
it's
that's the
pushing us to
disconnect.
build in a different way. Yeah, but we're
Mhm,
disconnected in terms of how we're going to get there. They say, you have to do this. Great.
mhm.
But they don't tell us how we can do it.
So it sounds like it could be spawning a whole different or new industry to bolt onto that, where there could be specialized roles for individuals coming into construction development, or maybe have a sustainability focus, or perhaps wants to be a part of that change and bridging that gap and that disconnect, whether it's
Yeah, most definitely. I
technological.
would say, like geothermal as an example, just to speak
Hmm.
to, was a opportunity. It's been an opportunity for a long time. They've been doing it all over the world. We have been doing it here for however many years. I worked on High Park Lofts in Roncesvalles, and I think that was the first geothermal system that was ever installed
Oh,
in
cool.
like 2000, maybe 2007. I was probably just wrapping up the end of that, or 5 9 was wrapping up the end of that when I started. And the city at the time didn't actually understand how the geothermal system worked. And so they mandated that they installed an entire conventional backup mechanical system just in case the geothermal system failed. Right? So
Mm,
you think about that project was implementing innovation and new technology to create a greener environment and a better building as a whole. And the city at the time still made them install a backup rudimentary system, right? Just in
mm.
case, which is negating the reason for installing a geothermal system in the first place. Now, geothermal is talked about all the time, and we're just stepping over the edge of actually having to do geothermal to reach these green standards
Mm.
versus having conversations about whether or not we should add it to a project as a green opportunity. So that's a really positive drive towards this net zero movement that
Mm.
is being enforced. It's taken a really long time to come around.
Just learned something new. Amazing.
I'm here for
Um,
you. Yeah, anytime.
you're the best. What do you feel is the construction development industry's biggest challenge ahead?
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken about ones we've surpassed or maybe are working through. Ahead, I think again, this mandate to achieve is great. I am a proponent of building for the future in the best way possible for us, for our children, for our children's children, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because we are generally slow motion as an industry to kind of come into the change. It's the biggest challenge is really ramping up to be ready to achieve those standards. So the cities set these guidelines, we've set these dates in mind that we would all like to achieve. And so now it's the challenge is really figuring out how we're going to achieve it and all the steps that need to be taken now to make sure that we hit it. So, for example, as we talk about design development now, we need to make sure that we are appropriately designing buildings so that we don't have to retrofit them in 5 years to meet this
Gee,
standard, right?
yeah,
So we
that's
have to
that's a
think
lot to
about
manage. Yeah,
that's a lot because my design development now is a project that's going to occupy in 4 to 5 years, right? That's how
right.
long the process takes from a municipal approvals out to occupancy. So it's the challenge is we have to figure it out now and we have to implement it now because ultimately when it comes about, it's going to have to be on site to achieve the standard at that time.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's a lot to manage, like the here and now, and because that could probably be a big cost if you'd have to. I know it's rhetorical, probably, but a big cost to have to
Well,
retrofit something you just built.
most definitely, it's a big cost to retrofit something you've just built, but it's
Mm,
also a big cost to add it into the building now. And as a developer, unfortunately, the market does not pay more money for a building that is greener than the one beside it. It doesn't. And so
mm,
we have to take on that cost from a construction perspective and not necessarily be able to bring it back in from a sales perspective because the homeowner may not know or see the difference or care.
mm.
So it's a a mandate that's being implemented on the development side, and it is our responsibility as developers and constructors to ensure that it's being done. But it's out of the goodness of our own hearts and not for accolades or a higher sales price.
Hmm. Hmm.
Interest rates and construction costs are high.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
everything's going up.
Yeah. It just seems like one factor working against the other factor.
It is. Yeah,
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
definitely.
And so, in your opinion, why should you strongly consider a career in construction or the development industry?
There are so many opportunities in this industry, again, that I had absolutely no idea about. I had no dreams or ideals of working in construction or very specifically managing construction, which I still find hilarious. When I was little, I wanted to be a French maid when I grew up. That was my dream because I liked the outfit. Before I knew any of the connotations that existed around said outfit, that's what I wanted to be. Right? Look what I'm doing now. It is wild
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I am sitting in an office managing multi-million dollar projects across this beautiful city. So I would always say to anyone at any level, there are so many opportunities in development and construction in particular, and it's such a tactile and visible contribution. You actually get to see what you've done. I get to drive around the city and I point to all these buildings and I say, "Oh yeah, I had a hand in that one and I touched that one and I ran the approvals for that one." And right? That it's it's really incredible to actually see your work in physical form.
You're shaping the city.
Shaping the city,
Yeah.
trying to add a little bit more color and context to what we have currently.
Yeah. It sounds like your creation, muscle is transitioned into construction.
Yeah, I would say fine arts is totally unrelated, but related from an opportunity to speak to materiality and color and concept and have an opportunity to understand 3D dimension as I review the drawings. Yeah, it's drawn into how the building comes together in both an interior and exterior impact and also left brain skill.
Mm, it's incredible. 99% of the things we try to predict never happen.
Yeah.
So awesome. Well, I appreciate you taking the time and sharing, your experience with us, Shannon, and the listeners. And I think it's absolutely incredible what you've achieved to date. And your path is one to be really recognized. Congratulations on all your success.
Thank you. Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. Bye for now.